exploring the psychology of holding grudges and the emotional dynamics of forgiveness.
Let's dive straight into the first area for improvement.
I'm ready.
So to begin refining the script for an audience seeking deep personal growth, we first need to look at how the listener is invited into the conversation.
Right, the opening minutes.
Yeah.
And just to summarize the first half, it uses these psychological terms like negativity bias and security system.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And it attributes concepts to psychologists to explain why we hold on to pain.
The current script relies heavily on a didactic, explanatory tone, which could create an emotional distance from a listener seeking genuine personal healing.
Wait, so you think it's too explanatory?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the weakness here is that introducing the concepts with phrases like psychologists say or calling something an uncomfortable question, it just intellectualizes the pain.
Oh, I see what you mean. It sounds a bit like a clinical lecture.
Right. And for an audience coming to this material for healing, they really need to feel their emotional reality is deeply understood before it is scientifically analyzed.
I actually have to push back on that a little bit, though.
Oh.
Yeah, because when I read those phrases, or when it brings in the concept of the negativity bias to explain why we remember one insult out of like 99 compliments,
Uh-huh.
I actually found it somewhat comforting. Because when I'm dealing with my own emotional baggage, knowing that my reaction is just biology, that it's a documented phenomenon, it kind of makes me feel less crazy.
Sure. That makes sense.
It removes the personal failing. So, doesn't that clinical distance actually lend weight to the argument, like providing a necessary relief by externalizing the problem?
That is a highly logical way to approach it, but it assumes the listener is currently in a headspace to process logic.
Okay, fair.
In psychology, there is a concept of hot and cold emotional states. When someone is actively nursing a grudge, they are in a hot state.
Right, they're hurting.
Exactly. And the script is approaching them from a cold, academic state. That friction creates resistance.
Oh, wow. So it's like a doctor giving a clinical diagnosis before asking the patient how much pain they're in?
That is a perfect analogy. The diagnosis might be completely accurate, but the bedside manner is lacking.
So improving that bedside manner will make the later insights land much harder.
Precisely. So the suggestion here is to shift to a more conversational, validating tone that honors the listener's lived experience as the primary focus.
Bringing in the science as a supportive, normalizing tool, rather than, a detached fact.
Yes, exactly. So for concrete examples, instead of saying, psychologists say that holding a grudge isn't always about revenge, you rephrase it to validate the listener directly.
How would you word that?
I'd say something like, if you're holding on to anger, it's easy to feel like you're just being vengeful, but actually your brain is fiercely trying to protect you.
Oh, I like that. It feels so much more grounded.
Right? Notice the shift. We move from a sterile third-party observation to a direct empathetic validation of their internal struggle.
And I guess we can apply that exact same mechanism to the negativity bias section, too.
Definitely.
Because right now it just says, because our brains have what's called a negativity bias. It reads a little like a textbook.
Yeah, so we could rewrite that to say, it's exhausting, isn't it? The way your mind clings to that one insult, even if you've been praised 100 times. You're not broken for doing that. It's just your brain's ancient survival wiring trying to keep you alert to danger.
Ah, so you validate the exhaustion first and then give it a scientific name.
Exactly. It changes the tone from a professor grading a paper to a guide walking alongside you.
That's a huge difference. Okay, so once that empathetic connection is established, the critique naturally shifts to how the script guides the listener through the actual process of healing.
Which brings us to the exercise portion of the text.
Right, so about midway through, the script outlines what it calls a simple exercise. It instructs the listener to close their eyes, think of someone they resent, and ask a logic-based question.
Which is
holding on to this pain improving my life? And then the script notes that answering this question is sometimes enough to start healing.
the material treats the process of letting go as a sudden, rational choice, which might alienate listeners who find the actual journey much more complex and drawn out.
Alienate them? You think it goes that far?
I do. The weakness in this section is that it drastically oversimplifies emotional trauma.
Because of the word simple?
Yes. Labeling it a simple exercise and suggesting that answering one logical question is enough to start healing it, it implies that if a listener just realizes the grudge isn't helping, they can easily drop it. Listeners who struggle to let go feel like they are failing.
That makes so much sense. When I read that part, I actually couldn't help but think of someone sitting in a hospital with a broken leg.
Oh?
Yeah, like asking a logical question to cure an emotional wound is like telling someone with a broken leg that walking is mathematically more efficient.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Like, yes, logically, walking is better. The math checks out, but the leg is still shattered.
Exactly. The logic of efficiency doesn't magically knit the bone back together.
It just makes the person with the broken leg feel terrible that they can't stand up. So I have to wonder, does skipping over the messy middle of healing sacrifice the script's authenticity for the sake of a neat resolution?
It absolutely does. The messy middle is exactly where the listener actually lives. So the suggestion is to frame the act of letting go as an ongoing, messy, and courageous practice.
Rather than an instantaneous fix.
Right. We have to validate the endurance required to heal, rather than pretending it's a neat logic puzzle.
Okay, so concrete examples. How do we physically rewrite this section to reflect that?
First, change the framing. Drop a simple exercise entirely. Frame it as a starting point, or maybe a daily practice.
Oh, a daily practice sets a totally different expectation.
Exactly. And then you need to add dialogue that acknowledges the reality of the struggle. So after the exercise, you could add, letting go isn't a one-time decision you make with your eyes closed. You might have to wake up and choose to let it go every single morning for a month. And that is completely okay.
That is incredibly freeing. It gives the listener permission to fail on Tuesday as long as they try again on Wednesday.
Exactly. You change the timeline of success from right now to over time.
I love that. And you know, this necessity for a more nuanced, realistic approach to the hard work of healing, it leads directly into how the script wraps up its message.
The final hook.
Right, the final call to action question left for the audience in the comments. The script ends by asking, do you believe forgiveness makes us stronger or does it make us vulnerable?
The closing question presents a rigid dichotomy between strength and vulnerability, which restricts the deeper reflection necessary for profound personal growth.
A rigid dichotomy? You mean the either-or setup?
Yeah, that's the weakness. By pitting strength against vulnerability, asking if it makes us stronger or vulnerable, the script inadvertently implies that vulnerability is a negative outcome.
Oh, I see. Like it's the opposite of being strong.
Precisely. For listeners focused on self-improvement and trauma healing, modern psychological growth models view vulnerability as a vital component of true strength, not its antithesis.
It's so true. It reminds me of how skin actually heals.
What do you mean?
Well, let's say you have a deep open wound. Yes, an open wound is inherently vulnerable. It's exposed, it hurts.
Right.
But carefully cleaning it and exposing it to air is exactly what allows the body to generate new tissue and heal into a strong scar.
Oh, wow. Yes.
You can't get the enduring strength of the scar without the initial vulnerability of exposing the wound. So, I wonder, could a minor wording tweak here fundamentally change the caliber of the comments and the audience engagement the script will receive?
It would change everything. The script separates these concepts into competing factions when it desperately needs to integrate them.
So what is the suggestion here?
Reframe the closing hook so that it integrates vulnerability as a courageous and necessary step toward strength, rather than an opposing force to be debated.
Okay, so instead of the current either-or question, what are some concrete examples of an integrated prompt?
You challenge the listener. Ask something like, how might embracing the vulnerability of forgiveness actually be your greatest act of strength?
Oh, that's good.
Or even something a bit more provocative, like, what if the vulnerability required to let go is exactly what makes you so unbreakable?
Wow, that completely bypasses the debate.
Exactly. When you ask a binary question, you get a superficial argument. People pick sides. But when you ask an integrated question, you bypass that entirely and invite the audience to share their actual stories.
You move the community from a shallow argument in a comments section to a shared, profound exploration of healing.
Which is exactly what a creator in the personal growth space should be aiming for.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered a lot of crucial ground today. Let me just briefly recap the 3 actionable takeaways for our listener.
Go for it.
First, replace didactic psychological explanations with validating empathy.
Right, let them feel understood first.
Second, acknowledge the messy and nonlinear reality of the healing process instead of calling things a simple exercise.
Yeah, ditch the quick fix.
And third, reframe vulnerability as a crucial component of strength rather than a weakness to invite deeper reflection. We warmly invite you to implement these editorial suggestions and submit your revised script back to the show for another critique.